Kia ora. I'm just on my way out to catch up with Fahana, one of my gorgeous soul sisters, I will call her. She is a beautiful person, and just love catching up with her on every level, as a woman, as a spiritual being, and as a academic, educational type person who just, you know, she's just awesome. So looking forward to that. But I had a really awesome listen this morning on my Audible to Wayne Dyer. I've been listening to Making the Shift, and just trying to remember them, Making the Shift, and in that he talked about this morning how we are the result of our thoughts. So everything that we've thought up till now is what we've become. So right, so we are the result of our thoughts, which become. And so because of the fact that we are that result, if we want to achieve something more, if we want to become something else, so say we are ambitious and we want to achieve this certain thing, you've got to decide, you've got to look at yourself and go, am I those things now? Am I all those things that's going to take now? Or who do I have to become in order to achieve that? So if I wanted to achieve world greatness as a speaker, just say, then have I got everything going now? Well, then I can't be nervous when I get up and speak in front of people. I still get a bit nervous, not like I used to, but you know, so I've got things I've got to work on, and so I've got to change the thoughts about those things in order to achieve those things, right? So I've now then got to go, where's the gap? Okay, so that's the things that I need to rethink about myself. I've got to change my perception of myself and see myself that way. And so if you feel like something's been holding you back, it more often than not, in my experience, in my own life, it comes back to what have my thoughts been around my life, around this, around that, what have my thoughts been about that? And disciplining this is the first step to changing your life. I firmly believe that. Mel Robbins says you're just one decision away from success or failure. You're one decision away from various different outcomes. So how you use your mind and the way you make your decisions is it, right? It's everything. The way that you train your mind in the morning, the way that you prepare yourself for the day. And so I'm just about to do quite a few sessions speaking to groups around oozing positivity. And the interesting thing was that I had an epiphany when I was listening to Wayne, was actually what's happened to me over the last month. I probably had more down days in the last month than ever in my life. And so I had to think about that and really revisit that. And what's happened is I hadn't been completing my practices of how to stay positive, how to get this trained. This had taken over everything, and so my thoughts, processes had taken over, and therefore how I feel about various things had become it. So if that makes sense to you. So now I've since got back into my routines that I know are really good for me, like walking in the morning, listening to really interesting positive podcasts or audible books, and having my coffee and doing my Bible study, and all of those things are good for me to set up my day right and think positively. Gratitude, another thing that I hadn't been practicing. And so even though I talk about these things, they're a constant discipline for all of us. So I just hope that might help somebody else today, because that was a real epiphany for me. Anyway, love to you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Mwah. I just had another thought that I needed to share, and that was that even though I talk about positivity and positivity rituals to set up your day right, and for me to be in alignment with God and what He wants, and for you it might be that you need to be at peace with yourself and calm the mind. Whatever your daily ritual is, then that's really important to set yourself up and ground and earth yourself as you need to for yourself. What I needed to say was that I don't want that in any way to disrespect or minimize people that suffer from depression, because I've had bouts of depression, not chemically depressed, but certainly been in the black hole, and at different times in my life, and managed to get myself out of that. But and I also believe that there's people who have who say they have depression when they're actually surrounded by assholes that are in very poor relationships, that have no boundaries, that actually really need some really good counselling advice and help to change the way that they're living, so that they can actually not be surrounded by assholes anymore. So there's that. But then there's also people who need some medication to help balance their chemicals out in their bodies. So I totally agree with that. But I think there are people that have been misdiagnosed. My mum, for example, my dad died, and they'd been married for 30 years, and she was put on antidepressants not long after his death, and she was on them till she died. So that was 96 that he died, and then she died in 2019. How many years is that, that she was on antidepressants? So, so I think there is there is some misdiagnosis, or very poor diagnosis, I think, from doctors, where they throw around antidepressants like they're just a lolly, instead of actually figuring out that she could be suffering from grief, and therefore she probably needs quite a bit of counselling to help to cope with her new life as it is, and understand what's happening for her. So some really good counselling and setting all that up for her would have probably been really good. Plus, there's also the other side of it, where people are suffering from depression, and you know how we say, "Oh, I'm here for you. My door's always open," and I've been guilty of saying it as well. When you're in that place, the last thing you would do is knock on someone's door and go, "Hey, I've just been having a really hard time." That is the hardest thing to do when you're in that situation. And the better thing to do is to reach out and be a community to people. So I think a big part of staying positive and keeping positive mindset, I think community, and I did a post earlier about women are missing the village, and that's so true, not just for mothers having given birth, but people who are in this community and are alone, have no one reaching out to them daily. We should be reaching out to each other daily, and I just got a little bit sick of reaching out to people, and then went, wow, who's reaching out to me, to check that I'm okay? And that's when I hit the black hole earlier in this month. So and now I'm okay. It's okay, because I'll start reaching out again, because that's I'm one of the doers. I'm one person who organises things and does things, but just think about who is it in your life that you haven't reached out to for a while, that you haven't checked in on, that you haven't turned up at their doorstep to say, hey, I really wanted to spend some time with you. Think about that. Because it's all very well for us to talk about oozing positivity and change your mind, change your world, and all the things that I talk about, when actually you might be doing all of those things and still be surrounded by assholes that bring you down every day. You might still be doing that, but be totally isolated and lonely, and it's very hard to keep that mindset upbeat. So it does come back to, how are we as a community being responsible for what's going on in our community, for those people that are feeling isolated. So I feel passionately about this. So I just think it would be really good if we can start spreading that awareness that what are you doing for your people in your community? Who's in your community? How are you involving them in your life every day? And that's just to check in on somebody, to invite them to something, to organise something with them, to make them feel included as part of a bigger community. One of the things that came out of my discussions this morning was just a really cool reminder that I thought somebody here might need to hear. And so that was about a few years ago. I went to Bookco race course and did what they call defensive driving course, but I call it aggressive driving course, because it was really how fast teaching you to go fast around the course safely, which is pretty much how I drive. Anyway, in this course, what they did was they had you down the straight, and then they put cones across half of the straight, and so you had to go hurtling towards the cones, and then at the last minute through the walkie-talkie they would blow a whistle, and so that's when you could brake, and you couldn't brake until you heard that, and it was only like 20 feet before the cones, and you had to brake and swerve and get around the cones. So the first time I did it, smashed into the cones, thinking I can't have the cones, I hit the cones, because panic, heard the brake, got to brake now, reactions are slow, and just focused on not hitting the cones, so I hit them. The second time they said, whatever you do, don't think about the cones, think about where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. And the second time, hurtling down the track, heard them say brake, and braked, swerved, and got to where I wanted to go, because that's where my focus was. I know, right? So what do we take from that? It was such an epiphany at the time, and I'd forgotten about it until we had this conversation this morning. It reminded me so often in life we're worried about where we don't want to go, rather than focusing on where we do want to go. And so where would you like your journey to go next? Where would you like to be next? This person who has gone for these interviews, been applying for jobs and focused on where she wanted to go, she's now got an interview tomorrow. So focus on where you want to go, not where you don't want to go, not where you don't want to be, that you don't want to get the rejections, that you don't want to get all about positive thought, is really disciplining the mind to get that positive thought out there. And that's the other thing that we talked about too, was that real discipline around the positive mindset, and making sure that if you don't have one and you know that it's an issue for you, get some post-its and post them up everywhere with some positive mantras, and I can help you with that if you need. Yes, I decided to put my hair up. Anyway, I can help you with that. So think about things like where you want to be, the XX job, that's for me, that's being prepared for me. That's a good mantra. Put that sticker up. It was a gift. That situation that happened was a gift, and now it's I'm on the next best part of my journey. The perfect man is out there being prepared for me. Anything like that, depending on what it is that you're feeling, where you want to be and what you want to avoid. Just think about where you want to be more, and put that into some kind of a sentence that's inspiring for you. So it's got to be your words, but they really work. They really work to help to discipline the brain not to go to the negative. And even putting a dot on your hand or something like that, so that it reminds you, oh, that's right, positive thought. I hope that helps.